So, welcome everyone to another episode of Art Side of Life, and I'm super happy to have more members from the community. So, Alex and Petar, hi!
Hi.
Hello.
So, I'm super happy that you guys joined us today, and I can't wait to hear more about your artistic journey and how you got to art and basically all of these. And before actually we start, I want to mention for everyone who, if they haven't checked it out yet, that I have some new courses as well on Skillshare and the platform. And I would like to hear as well what you guys are working on. So we can start maybe with Alex. So we discussed that a little bit before the recording. So yeah, so fire away. How did you get to art, and basically what is your specialty and the background?
Well, my specialty for now is graphic design, but I will go to illustration because when I was starting, it was, I don't know, in high school or something. And then I want to go to graphic design. Yes, but then I discovered something like illustration, and I said, wow, I want to do that, and but I stick to the graphics design, because that was my job, and
Yeah.
But right now I want to go to the illustration and concept art, something like that. This is what I want to do right now. Then I have few how you call it, few illustrations, and I will start making more now.
Ah, perfect.
So
And so do you know which area of illustrations you want to go to? Is
yeah,
it like editorial illustration or like business illustration or for movies, games, or everything?
no. Basically for games and do some concept art and illustration for games. This is my target. Yeah,
So
that's it.
yeah, so we will show it, of course, on the video. So now we will see it in the YouTube. But for people who are just listening, maybe what type of visuals are you creating? Is it like based on fantasy, or is it like
Oh,
simplified, or what is the kind of the recognizable styling you are going for?
it will be something like Tyler. Something like Lois do. Your
Yeah, the
yeah,
colorful
something
like
like that.
characters.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Live, colorful, happy illustration, and this is what I want to do.
Oh,
I know
perfect.
the game. I know game industry. You have to sometimes do like what they want, and that's fine with me. But personally, for me, I will aim for something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So like the positive illustrations. I mean, we
Mhm.
always need more of that in the world, of course. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
like you
definitely like
said.
that. And what about you, Petar? How did you get to art? And yeah, what are you doing now?
So right now I'm mainly a 3D artist. I have a slight background in 2D. As a child, I had this like Yu-Gi-Oh sticker album. I used to trace over the pictures that were all over the pages, and it was fascinating. I really loved anything art related. However, that didn't stuck with me mainly throughout my teenage years. I took a big pause, and right now I'm getting back into it, mainly in the 3D industry. Um, I remember I had a friend that suggested this like a 1 day workshop for absolute beginners. That's how I got into the field and got everything going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got enrolled into this academy. It was a 1 year course. I it was the academy that held the event, the 1 day workshop. So that's how I got introduced to them, and I
And
loved
that
everything
that was
about them.
local, right? Or it was
Yeah,
online?
yeah, yeah. It was local. It was
Ah,
local.
okay.
So I loved the energy there. I was completely sold. So that was like a year ago, and I actually just graduated like a week ago.
Oh, cool!
So
Oh,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
congrats.
And yeah, I don't have any regrets for the decision I made to, go into it. Because before that, I was studying business logistics. I was like a third year in college, and I didn't really like it. I had to make some changes, and this was one of them. And yeah,
Yeah,
now I'm
logistics, that's super stressful. Yeah, there are
yeah,
so
yeah,
many things that can go wrong along the way. So yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I agree.
And
So
yeah.
yeah.
And so if you guys think about like the goals or the future projects, what you would like love to work on, like either working on a specific game or publishing your own art book or something like this, do you have already something in mind, like I would like to do this next year or within 5 years?
Um, is Alex gonna go first, or should I?
Go
If you
first.
have something already in mind,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, sure.
Um, I absolutely love the Spyro games, the remastered versions. That's kind of the style I choose to go for. The more cartoonish type of look for my characters, and I would love to work for possibly a sequel to the game or, something along those lines. I just love the whole aesthetic of the game. It really draws me in, and yeah, that's one of my goals, to work for a company that produces such games.
Yeah, so you can already show them how do you do it, right? So next year I can see it in your portfolio, right?
Yeah, exactly. Spyro was actually the first model I made.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, it has very, sentimental meaning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because when you start creating already things what they see, they're like, okay, we can already implement it right away. Like when I was applying for Lego, I just created a new Lego play team, like kind of I illustrated
yeah,
everything, and that was like my portfolio when I applied. And they were like,
yeah, exactly.
okay, this is interesting.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and what about you, Alex?
So me, I want to go now to the studio and just do some work like a concert artist, But a long-term goal is I really like that when I saw somebody make a book or something like that. That really is fun, but you have to work.
Oh, yeah.
At work, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the fair because last time I'm in the last month I make about 90 illustration for the book, and that was really fun to
Oh,
make.
wow. That's a
I have
lot, yeah.
to yes. In the 1 month I have to make a whole book and the typography and the whole stuff, but that was a really good job, and I think I will stick to it. But for now I aim to go to some studio or something like that and do that kind of job. Yes,
Yeah.
but in my free time, I will do something like that to the book,
Yeah,
to my book.
because it's super great that you have the experience in graphic design, and then when you
Yes.
do also illustration, it's kind of combination, because a lot of artists can't do the graphic design well for the book, and they're just freaking out when they have to design it. It's like, oh my gosh, so much work. So
Yes,
that's a
yes,
great
yes.
combination. Yeah.
It's helped me a lot,
Yeah.
really.
And what about like tips about improving and like learning new skills? Do you have like favorite books or something which kind of helped
Yes.
you along the way when you are learning new things?
And so, the best tip is practice smart. I bought a course from Anthony Jones, and he is really good because he has such a great advice how to make quick art. Not because when I was in school, I remember my professor said to me at painting class, just paint. And okay, that's fine, but
You're like,
just
okay.
paint, it's not a good advice. And when I bought that course, Anthony said something like that: you have to practice smart, and because you don't have whole life to practice. Yeah, you have to make art, and I recommend listen to pros, good, because they have good advice.
Yeah.
That's from me.
Definitely, I totally agree. It's like also when I'm learning new things, I'm taking different courses from different creators, because everyone
Yes.
has like different approach and tips, and like learning with and practicing with purpose definitely helps,
Yes,
because
yes,
you
yes, yes, yes.
you just start to see things you didn't know.
And make a goal, because I see some some artists do everything. So be like laser focus. If you want to do, I don't know, characters, focus on anatomy, that kind of stuff. And I think that will help to improve.
Yeah, so when you were learning, it was like kind of like first focus on anatomy, then focus on, I don't know, like feet, hands, and then you would go focus on color. So not like everything at once, but as you said, laser focus, like one at a time.
Okay. And focus about your weakness. When you are weak in something, I think this is a good thing to practice that. Go out of your comfort zone. This is my advice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because a lot of starting creators are like kind of stressed out from that like you feel like I'm like, I suck at everything. So how should I focus on one thing if I am not great at everything? So they try to learn everything at once. So it's everyone has a different approach. So definitely.
Yeah, I just make a plan. And this is really easy to do. Take a paper and make a plan. Oh, okay, I suck at this, start with this. And that's all for me. That's helped me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And what about you, Petar? How was your approach to learning?
My approach to learning? Learning what exactly?
Like kind of improving your art skills and either learning from others or just like the practice aspect of it.
Well, what I tend to do when I, for example, choose to model a character, let's say, I split, like I have a picture of the character and I color zone each part. I put it into segments. I colorize each part so that I have a visual representation of when I do each part of the character. Right arm on this day, left arm on that day. So, that really helps me because, it just, instead of looking at just one really complicated thing, you split it up into simpler, into many simpler things. That's usually what I do. You mentioned a book. Recommendation? Yeah, well, I have one in mind. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's a really quick read, and it's all about improving your mindset and how your thought process when you sit down and you're ready to work. It helps you improve, and I think that's one of the things that we struggle with the most as artists. It's not so much the art, but it's rather procrastination. Motivation, things more that are more general, and that book kind of helps you improve your mentality. While we're on the topic, I would suggest reading and listening to other podcasts, because you hear people talking about their thought process in relation to art, for example, and you kind of get a sense of how you can develop a way to manage those issues you have. For example, I struggled with perfectionism a lot in the past, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't do art for so long. Because you just sit down and it's so stressful, and hearing people talk about it just kind of helps you out in a way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because everyone has kind of similar issues, and you're like, okay, I'm not alone in this. So, and yeah, exactly. It's just the whole overall thing. It's like the business aspect, the motivation, and every part of it. So you also mentioned, so you have this book, and do you have also some tips about kind of managing the time or kind of being like the creative entrepreneur, working with clients and all of these things, some experiences maybe you're like, oh, I wish I knew this.
I have to admit, I'm really bad at managing my time. Even though I was like 3 years into business, I that's one of my flaws. I just can't manage my time well, and it's I struggle to find that balance. I'm improving, but I still struggle. It's either I'm gonna go all in into something and completely drain myself out, which is totally bad, or I'm either gonna be super lazy on some days. But that's one of the things, you're improving as an artist every day, and these books that I stumbled upon, have been recommended from one of your podcasts. It really helps me out.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I also love to
yeah,
read so many things. I mean, like my reading is usually on audio books because then
Mhm.
I can listen to it in the public transport or somewhere. So you can draw along the way, and yeah. So and you can listen on speed too,
yeah,
so you can learn
yeah,
more.
yeah. I
Yeah,
used to listen to podcasts every day on my way to class. So
yeah.
yeah,
Ah, cool. And yeah, what about you, Alex? What about the time management business
Mhm.
aspect of
So
everything?
I really like a Stoic philosophy because I every day I want to at night when I going to sleep, I take this my notebook, and I make a plan to the another day, and this is a list. And you know, when I get up and next day, I don't have problem to like what I'm going to do right now. You know, I just know and just do it. And that really helps me because I know what to do. I don't procrastinate because I have a list to do, and this is like RPG game, you know. You have quests,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so that
You can
really
tick off.
helped for me.
And do you do planning like every, as you said, every day? But do you do also goals per like every 3 months or kind of like a yearly goal and like break it down into smaller
Mhm.
points?
Uh, Sorry. I used to make that goals for I don't know 1 year or something like that, but I stopped that because I try to focus on present, not past, and not future. You know, because everything is changing right now, and that's good when you have a long-term plan. Okay, that's good, but that doesn't work for me. And this is really good, and I will stick to this because this is working like
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, yeah. And then you might be like, yeah, next year, like, okay, I need the new planning tool or a new structure. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And what about like networking or getting new clients? Do you have like tips in those areas, kind of what worked for you? Like maybe either tips from other people around you or from your own experience, like either working with agent or going to expos and getting clients
Mhm.
through there or from a company or something like that.
I think in those times, social media really helps, you know, like something like Instagram or other things, some groups. You can always send an email to somebody, you know, and I think this is really helpful. And you have to be consistent on Instagram, and when somebody sees that, maybe he will approach to you, but
Hmm.
you can reach to them too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's,
So your go-to is Instagram mainly and then
Mhm.
emails.
Yes.
Okay.
All social media, maybe, you know, Twitter, Facebook, but I like really Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
The
Yeah,
main, the main social media is for me Instagram.
yeah, because a lot of people are like, oh, let's be everywhere, and it's hard to manage all the social media platforms. So
Hmm.
it's good to choose, as you say, like some, yeah, either one or then repost on the other ones, and yeah,
Yes, it's hard to manage all that because you know you don't have too many time on this. So I rather stick to Instagram or I don't know Facebook, and that's all for me. But if you have time and you can do that on all social media, go for it. But it's really hard, you know.
yeah, yeah. And what about you, Petar?
Um, well, I would say that, you know, our station holds these like challenges every 3 or 4 months or so, and every kind of activity like that, for example, Inktober, that kind of brings a lot of people to do it at the same time. I think that's a good way to, you know, meet new people and, you know, gain publicity and all that stuff, because um, a lot of people are, you know, following up with whatever's new in terms of that challenge. People often post in groups, and uh, that's a good way I would recommend to meet new people and get involved with the community.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Because like these, as you said, challenges, people follow the hashtag and they want to see like
Exactly.
if you are doing it, like, oh, what other people are creating. And
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think now again the art versus artist is going on. Like I saw a few posts already today again.
Yeah.
So it seems, yeah, like every year. So I think it's starting already now on Instagram, or maybe it just started earlier, but I just saw it today. So but yeah, so that post, it will be again, I guess, good. And yeah, a lot of like Instagram pages are featuring some of these as well, and yeah,
Yeah.
all of these
Yeah.
challenges.
I saw one thing. A good thing is to make community like on, I don't know, Discord or Facebook group. This is really helpful, you know. Like I saw one artist, he make a Discord account and he makes them to make, I don't know, challenges like draw a face or draw a hand, something like that. Show your art. And this is a good thing to make networking.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
work.
Oh yeah, that's true, because not that many people are doing it through Discord, I would say, or at least no, not that I know of. So I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
It's starting. I think it's starting right now. I saw so many artists start to make their own channels, and this is a good thing to do. Like you have your art side of life. Why you don't have a Discord? I would like to join it. You know.
Yeah, I need to manage the time somehow. So it's like
I
kind of try to
understand.
prioritize things, because you know the editing and all of that
I
and
get it. I
client
get
work.
it.
But it's a very good idea. I think that would be nice to do. So I will put it on my to-do list. But and what about like maybe overcoming the struggles or days when you don't feel like motivated, or you're like, oh, this is not good? Do you have maybe tips in that area? Like what helps you? Either meditation or walking in the forest, or hanging out with friends, or some other tips?
Me or you, Peter? Who
If you
wants to
are
start?
both, like you have the idea, like,
Let's say,
okay, now I want to
for
share.
me, I really like to, I don't know, go for the run or something like that. I really like Wim Hof method. It's a breathing technique, and you know, you make breathing and go to the cold shower. It's really good because it boosts your energy. And when I struggle, then or when I do something, I like cut it to some parts, and I start with that part, and it really helps me.
Oh yeah. That's a very good idea, because I also I don't know if you guys read the book Miracle Morning. That's also something like a little bit of the breathing exercise. Then you you write down like your things you are like grateful for, or what you're looking
Yeah, yeah.
forward to, and it's kind of like spending time with yourself, like as a first thing in the morning before you work on anything else. So, and then I think there was also something with like taking a shower or going for a walk, or just a little bit of exercise, at least like 5 minutes, and then it helps the whole day.
Yeah. This is so true because you can trick your mind. Like, for example, if you smile every day, and I know that sounds kind of funny, but before the mirror, you trick your mind in that way that you feel a little bit happier.
Yeah. But
And
it's so true.
sometimes
That's so true. It's
that
like
helps.
they say it also when you go for big meetings or big presentations,
Yeah.
when you put your or arms up or this stuff, like, yeah, I can do this. Or you kind of imagine like this will go so well. And then kind of
Affirmation.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
then you are not so stressed.
Yes, sometimes.
Well, I mean, of course, like it's always stressful to talk in front of the other people, but it kind of helps to release the tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what about you, Peter? Do you have like tips in that area?
Well, when I feel overworked, the first thing to do is, to back away and do whatever activity, relaxes you. But in certain cases, when you mentioned that question, first thing that came to mind was oftentimes when I would work on something, whether it's a drawing or a model, I would suggest not to focus too much on just one single part of whatever you're doing, because over time you kind of lose sense of judgment of whether it's good or not. And that's why many artists, what they do is they just mirror the image. For example, if the character is facing that direction, it mirrors over to that direction, and you kind of get a fresh perspective on the angles and whether it's looking good from this angle or not, and that really helps. So that's one thing I would recommend people do, is just go all over the place. Don't just stick to one single point of the image. Yeah. Other things, I don't know.
Do you also leave the artwork and then you go to it maybe next day, or do you work on the more things at the same time, like more projects?
Yeah, I switch between projects. That also helps, kind of, switch it up a bit. It really prevents it from going too dull, because oftentimes if you focus on one thing, it can, I've happened to work on a model for sometimes 2 months, and like every day you stare at this thing and it's almost exactly the same. It doesn't go through drastic changes within a day, for example. It's a really, long period of time, and you just keep looking at the same thing, and sometimes you just need a break,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because then you can get stuck on the surface, like make it perfect, or more realistic, or the color changing or something like that.
Yeah, you keep thinking there's something wrong, but in reality you just need to back away a bit, take a fresh look, and you'll see that the answer was right there. You just, had to look at it from a fresh set of eyes, I guess.
Yeah, that's so true. And do you guys go also to maybe live drawing classes just to improve in life kind of skills, or sketching from real life somewhere just to train the observation?
Yes.
We don't. We don't. But that's something I used to do before I got into 3D.
Yeah.
Like I would just, whatever I would look at, I would just straight up copy it down to the finest detail on a piece of paper. I got really good at proportions, if that's what you meant.
Yeah, because it can be also just seeing the compositions, because when you're creating something also in 3D, you want to kind of have something not realistic, but how you simplify it, or how the materials look like, and how would you translate it if it is not one-to-one real thing.
Yeah, exactly. For example, there, you walk down the sidewalk, and the rocks that are beneath your feet, at first you think it's so simple, but when you start to observe, you kind of realize that there's more to it than just a plain old gray texture on the rocks. It's so much more, like moss, cracks. Observation, a good skill set to have. Very, very important, yeah.
Yeah. So do you go also, you, Alex, right? Do you guys go for when you are outside and you either notice something? So do you take a picture, or do you just do a mental note, or do you actually carry around sketchbook to write down ideas?
Wrinkles on clothing, like folds, that's what I start to pay attention to lately. I started modeling cloth, and it got really hard. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, so I just felt like I needed to start observing more from real life.
Yeah. Now I feel like I'm wrinkly, so I'm thinking about the wrinkles on the clothes.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of theory behind it, points of stretching and points of, relaxation.
Yeah, how is it pulling, and then where are the main parts,
And it's something you don't think about throughout your everyday life, It's something you have to actively do, set your mind. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's really good to go outside and observe that about what you see. I mean, the colors are different than when you take a picture. It's not what you can see with your eyes, So it's really good advice to go outside and look at things. Try to, draw them or something like that. Maybe now it's a really easy thing because, I don't know, you have your iPad and you go to the forest and you can paint. You don't need a bucket of paint and, you know.
And that's why I love the iPad, because it's just like you take it with you and then you're just like, okay, you're there.
Yes, because you have to know that when you look at your computer, the image is always flat, you know. It's three-dimensional, but the colors sometimes are flat. When you go outside, you can't see from like everything is really sharp and that kind of stuff. It's rare. It's good to go outside.
Exactly. It's also like with the colors, it's hard to capture it with the camera, because the small nuances, like the details within the shadows, like with the camera, it's just dark, and then you can see like purples, I don't know what, and there are like different tones. And actually, when you mentioned the iPad, so what are the tool recommendations? What do you guys use? Maybe the softwares, or like, oh my gosh, this is so good for other people to try out, or...
I'm using Photoshop, so, you know, Procreate is really good and fun, and Sketchbook, that's for me.
And do you have also like custom brushes in Photoshop, or do you use mostly like the basic generic brushes, not to get over crazy with brushes?
You know, when you do concept art, it's good to have some brushes, but every artist said something like that. Brushes doesn't matter. You know, you have to just make good art. Where when you can make good art, you don't need some brushes. But I have some custom brushes, few.
Yeah, because of course, like the brushes don't make the artist great, but it helps to kind of the process. So I believe that the tools kind of help to improve, or kind of make the process easier. So you mentioned you have Photoshop, you have iPad, and do you draw on like Intuos or something like that, or do you use mouse with Photoshop?
That Wacom.
Okay. Yeah. So that's like
that is my tool.
5, I guess, right?
I don't know.
Something. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just for people listening, right? So the Intuos tablet with the computer. Yeah.
This is the new one.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. And what about you, Peter? Sorry, I'm pronouncing maybe your name wrongly. It's Petar or Petar?
Yeah. That's the way. Yeah. You're European, so you can have an easier time pronouncing it.
Yeah, because here they call like here it's Peter or Peter or Petar, so everyone has a different pronunciation depending on which part of Europe, right?
Yeah.
In Poland it's Piotrek.
Yeah.
Really? So. You're from Poland, right?
Yep.
Right. All right. So the question.
So the tools, right?
I use XP Pen. It's this tablet right here.
It's a little bit blurry, so we don't see it, but good.
Yeah. It's from the XP Pen product line. That's the only tablet I've used so far, so I can vouch for it. It's served its purpose. I haven't tried any other products to compare it with, but so far it's doing a pretty good job. As for software I use, I don't know because most of your viewers I think are 2D artists, so they might not...
also like 3D, so or if a lot of people want to also expand into 3D when you're doing 2D.
So I use ZBrush. I know you used it a bit before.
I'm not great at it, but yes, I used it.
Yeah, it's probably the most artistic software of them all. I also use only just a few brushes, as Alex said. Like, you don't really need much. Sure, there are some things here and there that are going to help speed up your workflow, but overall, you can make do with just a few tools that you have. ZBrush, Autodesk Maya, Substance Painter for coloring.
Okay, that one I haven't tried. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I use Photoshop as well, just for the tiny like final touch-ups to make the picture, pop. And yeah, primarily those are the four softwares I use.
Yeah. Also, do you use Blender or not so much? Because a lot of people are like into it because it's free, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. But it's getting really good. It's like it's comparable to other softwares, it's becoming a industry standard.
Yeah.
So,
and when you do like 3D creations, do you collaborate with other 2D artists or do you sketch everything yourself and build it from scratch?
I usually contact the concept artists. I usually find the concepts on ArtStation. You send them a message. Can I recreate your model in 3D? And usually they agree. And that's how I do it. Yeah, it's mostly the case. Because like in a game production environment, if you're going to be modeling something, you're going to be working off of someone else's concept. So getting into the habit of recreating someone else's ideas, it's good because that's what you're going to be doing later on.
Yeah. The process. I'm like blah blah. Anyway, the process is always good to keep because when you think about like the real life production or the company or even when you're freelance, it's already good to get into the habit like collaborating with other people.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And before we finish, if you think about like maybe the tips for your younger self, like what you wish you knew before you started this journey, do you have that insight?
Alex, you have something in mind?
Well, it's a hard question. I don't know, maybe work and practice smart. Don't do everything and nothing, just focus. And focus is a really good advice for everybody in every field, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. I think I would advise myself to be patient because because everything takes so much time and I'm like, I want to have it now.
Yes, and don't try to be perfect because that could lead you to hell, Not perfect, just do it. You finish your work. That's good.
Totally
that's what I would also advise myself. My younger self. I used to be quite a perfectionist and I would have this, fear of failing. So I would never get down to do it because I had a fear of, being put in an uncomfortable position where I'd have to, deal with a problem. Because as artists, you make a mistake, you're like, how do I fix it? And I had a tendency to avoid such situations, but, I got used to it. You have to be comfortable to be uncomfortable in a way.
Yeah, totally. It's so true.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, guys, for being here. And,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, so like super cool. And I thank you for sharing your tips. And where can people find you? If you can share your Instagram stuff, if you can say it for people listening.
I can just send you the link afterwards because,
Yeah, but like now for people on the podcast, right? Yeah. So like where people can find you?
For me, at Instagram is Alex channel, Alex that I
underscore,
don't know, yeah, Alex dot channel, and there are my stuff.
Perfect, yeah.
For me on Instagram, it's Petar P996.
Perfect.
And yeah.
Okay, so we will of course put it also in the notes and the description, so people can check out your art. And also for people listening on iTunes, if you like the episode, please leave a review. And thank you so much for listening again and watching if you are on YouTube. So yeah, so see you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.